So that's the sound of one hand clapping.
Just what I needed.
Did you know that there was an NES game developed and released in the year 2025? The game that we'll be taking a look at today is called Undercover Shot, which is created by transgender and pinball creator Jessica May, who I found through Instagram a while back for their gaming-based content, and probably some other reasons. Undercover Shot is a game where one person holds the NES Zapper, trying to snuff out a rat in the midst of your organization, controlled by the other player using the controller. And the only way to win is to snuff out that rat with your Zapper by putting a bullet between their eyes. And after seeing this game in action, I decided that I needed it immediately. Oh, Veras, you gotta slow down. You're spending too much of me. Oh, silly wallet. This game is only $2 on itch.io. It's not expensive at all.
I'm talking about the crack, Veras.
Well, snitches get stitches, wallet. This game was designed to either be played on the PC or authentically on the NES console with the Zapper and controller in mind. And while there is a physical version of this game that will be releasing very soon, there was only a limited run crowd-funded campaign for it as opposed to just kind of selling it in stores. And while I did purchase myself a copy, it's not going to be shipping for at least a little bit more time. So in that case, I'm gonna need some tools. In order to play it authentically, I just need an NES Everdrive. Holy shit, they're how much? Okay, well, thankfully I have a Retron 5, so I should be able to load it through an SD card, but it doesn't work with the NES Zapper. All right, maybe I can get an older Retron that supports the Zapper, but the older Retrons don't support the Everdrive. Okay, I guess that just means I have to buy an NES now, which they should be. Hachi mama! Thankfully, my brother had a friend who had an NES and a Zapper, so shout out to him and thank you. I also found a pre-owned Everdrive for only $30 on AliExpress. So things are starting to look up. Now, I just want to make it very clear that the distribution of ROMs that were already made by other companies and people is very illegal and you should not do it. However, the absolute legend that owned this Everdrive before me loaded every single NES game onto this, including all of the ones from the virtual consoles from the Wii U and 3DS, including things like Earthbound Beginnings. So thanks for the centuries worth of content, you fucking psycho. I then needed a CRT, which thankfully the co-host of my sister channel, the Cartridge Crusaders, had one. So thank you, Flynn, for letting me borrow your CRT for like a month and a half. I got the game loaded, but it wasn't supported with the version of my Everdrive since it was a Mapper 30 NES game and because it was made in NES Maker. So I just needed to update my Everdrive, and after doing that, I tried to load the game onto my NES, and it was taking a little while, so I hit reset to try and load it again, and the Everdrive stopped working on the NES completely. So I saw online that it may be because I tripped the CIC chip, which would prevent it from working. The CIC chip is basically a safeguard preventing you from playing fake or pirated games on your NES. So then I had to buy a top-loader NES that doesn't have a CIC chip in it, and it came with these cables, and it still didn't work. So I did the one thing that any sensible person would do. I went to Reddit, and I found out that apparently if you hit reset or power too many times with the console, it can actually damage the battery within the cartridge, which makes perfect sense. Obviously, if you're turning on and off a cartridge over and over again, it will short-circuit the battery. So I popped this baby open to replace the battery, and I found out exactly why it stopped working. This is a Chinese knockoff of the Everdrive N8. So I had to go and buy an official one off of the website to make sure that it was real, and I ended up going with the Pro version to try and prevent the Mapper 30 problem going forward. And after all of that and finally loading the game into the real Everdrive and putting it in the console, it finally worked. And after all of that work that I went through just to get all of this done and set up in about a month's worth of preparation, was it worth it? Yes, Undercover Shot is a fun game that utilizes one of the coolest peripherals in Nintendo history and makes for a hilarious experience to one-shot your friend with a perfect 1 in 4 chance guess. My sole complaint with this game is that you can hide in the edges of the map and never get shot. It also might be kind of cool to maybe add a few more maps just to kind of change the scenery in the background of the map that you're playing on. But for a game about shooting your backstabbing traitor of a friend, this game makes it a point to strategize and blend in so as not to find yourself in an early grave or have the death of an innocent on your hands. I love when modern developers will create games that will work on retro hardware. It's really cool to see a lot of those old consoles getting some love in the new age. We're even seeing companies companies that had canceled versions of games like 40 Wings, who only had a PS1 version of the game for the longest time, and then decided to release the Nintendo 64 version after all these years because it had a hidden multiplayer mode that none of the other versions had. Playing this game and trying to review it actually inspired me to look into maybe making an NES game of my own. I do have some colorful characters that deserve some time in the spotlight, so who knows? And although the game may be short and relatively small in scale, it is still very impressive that one person put this entire product together and was able to make it work with official Nintendo peripherals and the console. It's like I always say, the smallest and some of the weirdest projects that you can find are always the ones that serve as the biggest inspiration. So give it a chance. Go support Undercover Shot, head over to itch.io and download it. There'll be a link in the description as well. Just go right down there, go buy it. But that's all I really have to tell you today. I know today's video might be a little bit shorter than usual, but hey, I just wanted to shine a little spotlight on this really interesting little indie title. If any of you out there know of official games that came out on old consoles, let me know. Maybe I'll take a look at some more. But anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't snitch.